And I want to start this lesson off by just basically saying that we hear a lot about time management. And whenever I hear about time management, it just kind of amuses me because there's no such thing as time management. I know, it's people say, well, I'm taking a time management course, and I'm just saying, that'll be interesting. Tell me how you manage something that's already set. Unless I miss it, if you manage or don't manage time, it's still 24 hours in a day. Are you with me? You don't need to watch it. You don't need to manage it. In fact, it goes by itself. There's nothing about time management that will work for you. You see, it's not time management that we need to work on. It's priority management. It's not the time that we have that's the problem. It's what we do with the time. You see, it was in 1971, and I was working on a business degree, and I was in a marketing management class, and I was taught for the first time the Pareto principle. I can still remember as I was being taught this incredible principle, and I'm writing it down and trying to grasp it from the professor that day. I can still remember saying to myself, if I can grasp this well and practice it well, this will change my life. I knew back then that what I was learning in that classroom that day had life-changing potential for me. And I have become a student and a practicer of Pareto all of these years. Because that day, while I'm writing these notes down, I realized two things. First thing I realized was that I was doing too many things in my life. And the second thing I realized was I was not only doing too many things in my life, I was doing the wrong things. That's a recipe for disaster. Doing too many wrong things. That never turns out right. But here's what Isaac Newton said, and I love this quote. I have seen farther than others, if I've seen farther than others, it is by standing on the shoulders of giants. And that is so true. And so let's talk about how do I go from ladder climbing, which is where we all start, to ladder building. So let me give you the ladder stages. Number one is ladder climbing. This is where we start. And on ladder climbing, I ask myself a simple question, and the question is, how high can I go? How high can I go? And I want you to know that this is where you want to start. And let me say this, you want to climb as high as you can climb. So this is the first stage. This isn't a bad stage. This is a very good stage. You want to climb as high as you can climb. And here's why. If you're ever going to lead people and influence people, you've got to be successful yourself. No one ever gets up and says, wow, I would like to follow an unsuccessful leader. Wouldn't it be amazing if I followed somebody that wasn't any good? Oh my gosh. Wouldn't it be great to be on the team and lose every game? We don't go up and say, now, you're not any good, are you? Because I want to join a team, but I want to have a leader that's, it's not very good. No. The credibility you have to lead others is you're good yourself. If you're not good yourself, there's nothing attractive about anybody joining your team. No, nobody. I mean, hello. If nobody that's financially in trouble says, oh my gosh, I'm in financial difficulty, boy, I'm going to call Joe. He'll help me out. He's been bankrupt 3 times. We don't go there. No. We go to somebody that's got their financial act together, and we go say, okay, talk to you, teach me. So the question on how high I could go on climbing your own ladder, you want to go as high as you can go because people want to be with leaders who win. I mean, okay, if LeBron James and I, or if LeBron joins me on stage, okay, and we're picking teams. We're going to have a little basketball game after this teaching. And LeBron's captain one team, I'm captain the other team. And so LeBron's about to pick one of you to be on his team. You know what? Every one of you, you're not sitting there taking notes. You're standing up on your chairs. You're pick me, because you know that if LeBron picks you, you have greatly increased the odds of winning. And when it's my turn to choose, you're diving under the chairs. I can't even find it. Where did they all go? Well, you're head for why? You don't want me to pick you because you know if Maxwell picks you, you're going to lose. So everybody wants to be part of a winning team. So you want to, on the ladder climbing thing, climb as high as you can. The higher you climb, the more credibility you have for the other stages that I'm about to teach you. So stage 1 of the ladder stages is ladder climbing. And the question is, how high can I go? So let's go to stage 2. After we've done a good job ladder climbing, we can kind of move over to stage 2, which is ladder holding. And the question I ask when I'm going to become a ladder holder is how high will others go with some help? In other words, if I hold their ladder for them, can they climb a little higher? Can they do a little bit better? How high can they go if I offer them a little help? Now, when I look at this phase of my life, ladder holding begins with me with gratitude. And let me just say what I mean by that. A lot of times I go over and hold a ladder for someone else, and I'm very grateful because you know what? All the people that have held the ladder for me. In other words, I think of all the people that today are still ladder holders in my life. And I'm climbing higher because they're holding that ladder steady. And I wouldn't be able to go as high if it was that. So part of my holding ladders for other people is based out of gratitude because I've had people hold ladders for me. But it's also a part of attitude. And what I mean by attitude is that I continue it because I have a servant's heart to help other people. Kevin Myers said a great quote to me one time. I've had the privilege of mentoring him for 25 years, and it's kind of we're at the stage of life where sometimes when I'm mentoring him, I think he's mentoring me. One of the great things about mentoring people, when they really get good, is they give you stuff back better than you gave it to them. I mean, you give it to them, and then they give it back to you. I thought, oh, my gosh, thank you very much. And he told me one time, he said, John, leaders should want more for their people than from their people. And I love that distinction. Ladder holding is where I want more for you than I want from you. And one of the privileges that I've really had in my life is to do a lot of ladder holding. I love to do ladder holding. When I started the John Maxwell team, and we started credentialing coaches, that's ladder holding. I thought, what would happen if I held their ladder and I gave them my name and they could be a John Maxwell team coach? What would happen? Could they go a couple rungs higher? Could they improve themselves? And so I really thought that through, and I thought the main reason I started the coaching company is because I wanted to be a ladder holder for now 20,000 coaches in 160 countries. I'm holding their ladder, and I love holding their ladder. What a joy. I mean, and I'm watching them. They're going a little higher. Why are they going higher? Because the ladder's holding steady now. And so when it comes to ladder holding, it's something that I love. But now let me give you a great teaching principle out here. Ladder holding is the best way to discover people's potential. if you're holding their ladder, you know how high they will climb because you're right there and you're watching them. And you can hold the ladder for some people, and honestly, they don't climb very much. And then you hold the ladder for other people, and you just say, wow, look how high they've gone. I can't believe this. They were halfway up the ladder. I started holding this ladder, and now they're clear at the top. Now, here's why that's so important. Because the ones that when you hold the ladder for really start climbing and going up those rungs, these are the ones you take to the next stage of this ladder teaching. Because ladder climbing, how high can I go? That's where I get my credibility. Ladder holding, okay, how many people can I help? And by the way, you ought to just be holding as many people's ladders as you possibly can. You ought to be a ladder holder. You just, every chance I get to hold your ladder, I want to hold your ladder, okay? But in holding your ladder, now I get to watch you climb. If you're climbing high, then I'm ready to go to stage 3. And that's the ladder extending stage. Wow. Now, when I do the ladder extending, we take that ladder and we push it on up higher. We push up on higher. The question I ask on ladder extending is, how high will others go with a lot of help? You see, when I'm holding the ladder, how high will they go with some help? Now that we're extending that ladder and we're getting our reach higher, how high will they go with a lot of help? Now this enters into what I call the mentoring field. I think ladder extending is where you start mentoring people. And mentor, the word mentor, it's a verb and it's a noun. When you think of mentoring as a verb, it's something I do. When we think of it as a noun, it's something you are. And mentoring is both something I do and it's something that I am. And you can't isolate them. You can't say, well, I'm not a person that you really should follow, but I'm really good at what I do, or vice versa. So the verb is, this is something I do. The noun, this is something that I am. And so when I extend a person's ladder, I basically ask this question, because now that you're taking that ladder and extending it to a whole new level, what's happening now is you're asking, you know that they can go to the top of the ladder before it's extended, but now that you extend that ladder, will they keep climbing? And so there's a question I ask about this when I start to extend that ladder, and that is, what is this person's capacity? Now, I'm extending the ladder to find out what that capacity is. I wrote a book that I hope all of you have, okay? In fact, I'm going to assume that you all have it, okay? Now, I'm not asking, so don't worry. I'm not going to put you on the spot. I'm just going to look at all of you and believe the best in you. I'm going to look at all of you and just say, of course they would have this book, John. They're trying to improve themselves. I'm having fun with you. The book is No Limits. Love this book. And the reason I love this book is because in the middle of it, in the book No Limits, I talk about 3 things: awareness, capacity, and choices. I talk about the fact that you need to be aware what you need to grow in and work on. You need to have, you need to find out if you have, if in your giftedness, what kind of capacity you have, and then in your choices, the choices you make. So, and if you're aware of yourself and you have, and you're maximizing your gifts and you're making the right choices, then you become a no-limit person. Okay. So I want to talk to you about capacity, because that's very hard. It's very hard to figure out what capacity is. I mean, what's a person's capacity? That's not easy. So in No Limits, I talk about capacities because I'm asking myself, what's their capacity? And let me tell you what they are real quickly. Now, I know you have the book and you've already read it, but just in case you just can't quite remember, let me pull them out for you, okay? And immediately you'll say, oh yes, of course, I got that one, I got that one. One is energy capacity. I always want to know, what's their ability to push on physically? Because some people have higher energy than others. Is that not true? High energy. So what kind of energy capacity do they have? By the way, people ask me all the time, because I'm high energy. I got a lot of energy capacity, trust me. And people say, John, how can you travel and do all this? It's very simple. High energy, low IQ. Isn't that beautiful? Because think about it. If I had high IQ, I wouldn't do all this. If I had low energy, I couldn't do all this. But I have that perfect combination. You maybe don't have that. High energy, low IQ. You put those two together, away we go. So energy capacity. Another capacity I'm looking for is emotional capacity. Just the ability to manage emotions. Okay? How well can they, because there are just a lot of people, they don't have the emotional stamina to stay in the game. It's not that they lack capability. They're very good. They're very smart. But they emotionally can't handle the load. Thinking capacity. Their ability to think effectively. And the reason why that's so important is I find that the greatest gap between successful and unsuccessful people almost always is how they think. Unsuccessful people don't think like successful people. I'm not talking about IQ, I'm not talking about smartness, I'm just talking about the way of thinking. Unsuccessful people have a sabotaging way of thinking versus successful people. And how about people capacity? The ability to build relationships. I want to know what that, what's that capacity like? I want to know what that is. Again, it's awfully hard if you're in the people business and you don't like people. It's really uphill all the way. Huh? And when you see somebody that's in the people business and they don't like people, be their friend. Just privately go to them and say, could we talk? And when you're talking one-on-one, just look at them and say, my name's John, I'm your friend. I just want you to know, people don't like you. Because here is what is amazing to me. Most people don't know that they're not likable. I don't think most people get up in the morning and say, I think I'll get people not to like me today. No. They don't do it intentionally. It just happens to be their gift. And then there's creative capacity, the ability to see options and find answers. That's a great definition of creativity. A creative person believes there's always an answer. If you're not I believe there's always an answer person, you won't be highly creative. That's what keeps you in the game. Okay? And then there's production capacity, their ability to accomplish results. And then there's leadership capacity, their ability to lift and to lead others. Wow. Now, so when you're getting ready to extend the ladder, you got to ask yourself, what is their capacity in those areas? And then you got to ask yourself another question, are their values compatible to mine? Do we have compatible values? Because it's possible they could be high capacity, but their values are so skewed from what yours are that it still isn't going to work. And we've talked about those. I don't need to go back into those values, such as you want to add value to people, you want to do personal growth, you got to exceed expectations. Those kind of things are part of what we call in our coaching company the JMT DNA. And it's so important that they have those values that every time we get them together in Orlando, which is every 6 months, I go through an hour and a half teaching on what's the DNA of a John Maxwell team member. What does it look like? Because we want those values to be the same. Now, okay. So we've been ladder climbing, which gives us credibility, and then we've been ladder holding, which allows us to see a person's potential. And the ones that really show potential, we start to go to stage 3, which is ladder extending. But there's a whole different shift in leadership that you still want to make, and that is ladder building. Now, ladder building asks the question, can I help them build their own ladder? I love this. Can I help them build their own ladder? And let me just give you, so that I can help you with this, because I think that there are a lot of people, they don't mind developing people as long as they stay with them. But now I'm talking about you develop people that they're going to leave you. And they're going to leave you not because you were bad, they're going to leave you because you were a great equiper, and it's time for them to build their own ladder. It's time for them to climb their own ladder. It's time for them to start their own business. It's time for them to start their own organization. So let me just give you, I wrote this down. Let me just give you a few. I don't even know if you have time to write them down, but let me just give it to you. What I call ladder building questions. Such as, do I develop leaders to benefit others, not just myself? In other words, is it something that I'm willing to develop leaders, and even if they don't stay to help me, I just believe that leadership is so important that I'll invest in them even if they're not going to stay with me? Or do I relinquish control and give other leaders freedom to be themselves and develop their own selves? I mean, do I empower them, or do I try to control them? Am I happy for a leader that I help to move on without me? Or maybe go to another mentor, another mentor help them. And this is a great one. Am I genuinely happy for another person's building their own ladder? And am I genuinely rooting for them? Like, yay, go for it. And the last question, am I willing to keep helping many leaders build their own ladders without expecting to receive any credit? Am I just willing to develop people because I want to develop people, and and I'm not going to get the benefit from it, the credit from it? I still love the comment a person made to me one time when they were talking about kind of ladder building, ladder equipping people, and they said, John, I'll tell you what bothers me. I pour my life into somebody, and I just give them my best, and I get them climbing that ladder, and they just do really well. And they said, when they get really good, what really frustrates me is then they leave me, and they go to another company. They said, what could be worse than, developing a person, and then when they get really good, they leave you and go to another company? Is there anything that could be worse than that? I said, yes. Not developing them and having them stay. That's worse. So this ladder building really works on our motives. Am I really into helping develop other leaders, even if it doesn't always help me? Tyler Perry, in his book, Higher is Waiting, he has a beautiful chapter on little eaglets in their nest. And eagles build the largest, most comfortable nest and the highest nest of all birds. And those little eaglets stay in there a long time. As the mother comes, gets the food, comes to the comfort of the nest and feeds them. But there comes a day when it's time for those eaglets to start flying. But what's interesting is the eaglets never feel that day has come. It's always the mother who says, okay, it's time for you to get out of your nest. And the way they get them out of their nest is, instead of doing what they have done all the time, bringing the food in the nest and dropping it there for them to eat in the comfort and security, those mothers, they fly above and around the nest with the food. And they keep holding on to it until those little eaglets get right out there on the edge and get there out on the edge. And then they want that food so bad, they just finally take a leap. And of course, they get the food. And of course, the mother's there. If they can't fly yet, I mean, she's going to rescue them. But she understands that it's her job to get them out of the nest. And what I want you, here's what I want you to say. When you're a good leader, you recognize that it's time for a person to have their own ladder built for them before they do. And you're saying, okay, it's time for you to go on your own. It's time for you now to launch out. And I can say, I've had, I could remember when Tim Elmore was with me at Equip, and he had a whole section of Equip of helping college kids grow and teach them leadership. And I remember the day Tim and I had the discussion. Tim had been with me for 22 years. And I said, Tim, got to get you out of the nest. It's time for you to have your own. It's time for you to have your own ladder. It's time for you to have your own company. It's time for you to go climb that. I'm going to help you. I'm going to help you build that ladder. I'm going to set you up. And I did. I set him up. I helped him with resources and everything to get started. But I said, go for it. And he's got this beautiful company now for college kids, high school kids called Growing Leaders. And every time I see him and what he's doing, I say to myself, more is being accomplished to help people because I helped him build his ladder than if I would have tried to keep extending my ladder. And so if you're a leader, you need to be like that mother eagle. You need to recognize it's time for me to let them fly, to let them go on their own. One of my mentors was Fred Smith. And he was a beautiful, beautiful, wise, major leader in the corporate world. And he just took me under his wings, and he really helped me a lot. And so while he was mentoring me, he was telling me about a group of CEOs in Dallas, young CEOs, just real young, starting, just babies. And he took about 20 of them, and he put them under his wings. And for 3 years, every month, he mentored them and helped them build their companies. And he was their mentor. And he said, after 3 years, he looked at them and he said to them, okay, mentoring's over. I've done a lot, and you've learned a lot, and you're doing really well. You don't need me anymore. And so he said, now it's time for you to, fly on your own. And he said, so he stopped that relationship, and they did well. A year later, they asked him if they could have dinner with him, and he said, sure, I'd be glad to catch up. And so he came back to dinner with these 20 CEOs, and they stood up one by one at the table that evening and told Fred what he had done for them and how he had helped them and how they had grown because of him. And it was a very touching time. And when it was finished, they gave him this beautiful, beautiful crystal bowl. And on it, they had inscribed the words, "You stretched us." And so I went to see Fred when he was not doing well physically. I flew to Dallas and went to his house, and I knew that he was in his last days. And I wanted to spend a few hours at his feet, thanking him for what he had done for me. And it was precious. It was just a time with us. And I brought out all the lessons he had taught me. And he was in a wheelchair, so I pulled my chair over beside him, and I would tell him, and I would give him a hug, kiss him on the cheek, and I'd say, let me tell you something else. And the tears just rolled, and I'd tell him more, and it was just beautiful. And when I finished, he said, John, I want to show you this. And he showed me that crystal. And here I thought, here's a man who has been to the top of his world, but his greatest joy is 20 CEOs that would say, you stretched us. That's ladder building.
I love this concept, the shift that John is talking about. And I love it because John himself, he is a ladder builder. For as long as I've known him, I've worked here for 20 years, and he's always been building ladders. In fact, what we do is build a ladder for other people. That's our point. That's what we do. And so as John would teach this, I would really try to process, because John made this shift before I was around. A lot of these shifts, as 20 years working alongside John, the last 8 really working alongside John, I've seen him make these shifts. This one's one that just has seemed to work and that he's made for a long time. So what is it that we look for when we are building ladders, or when we are holding or extending ladders for others, when we finally quit trying to climb our own ladder of success and started thinking about others? That kind of a leader. We all like working for that kind of a leader. I say this often, but I believe that when the student is ready, the teacher appears. I believe when somebody is hungry enough or hurts enough, they will change the trajectory of their life. That's why people, after a significant relationship loss, they lose a bunch of weight. It's not that they're better in August than they are in January. We all have New Year's resolutions in January. It's because something hurts so badly, I'm going to change something in my life. Or I've seen people 8, 9 years old determine, I will not live in the poverty level that I grew up in. And at 8 or 9 years old, they become hungry enough to change the trajectory of their life. That's what I'm talking about with this coachability. There is a component in a potential leader that they're teachable. They may know more than you. They have more degrees. They may have more experience. But it's like any environment they're in, they're this sponge. The second thing that we look for, John and I and our organization to look for in someone we're going to build a ladder, is passion. They got to enjoy what they do. Now, everybody is not demonstrating passion like me, thank God. Wouldn't that be a mess? The world would be chaos if we had a bunch of redheads going around, hair on fire. And we all know that, and thank God we're not all like that. Thank God we're not all like that. But whatever passion looks like to each individual, it's got to be there for it to be a productive ladder building environment. And then finally, what I would say after teachable and after having passion, it would be shared values. We value the same things. We go after the same things. One of the things I have loved about John, he used a very dear friend of mine in the book, Tim Elmore. Tim's organization, Growing Leaders, is profoundly impacting the next generation. I look at what John has done for many other people that he's mentored, and they're leading some of the biggest companies in the world. They are running some of the biggest faith organizations in the world because John built a ladder. He extended their ladder, and he gave them a track to grow their influence. That's what it really looks like. We're in a season of John's life to where everywhere we go, somebody comes up that is profoundly impacting, different than John, sometimes better than John, many times bigger than John, that says, I am where I am because you built a ladder for me.
This is, the stuff I'm going to share with you is something that's absolutely enamored me. I call it the 8 paradoxes of great leadership. I have found the day in which we lead is just, can I just say it, harder to lead today. I don't know if anybody would agree with that. It's just kind of a funky time to be leading. And I have found that the greatest leaders, the most effective, life-giving leaders, practice paradoxes that make them effective. If I were honest with you, I would say the spark for this subject came a few years ago when I was sitting in a green room before an event like this. And in that green room, I found myself with 16 CEOs, different industries, male and female, different colors. It was in fact, I decided to turn into an instant focus group. So I asked the question, do you all believe that leading today is harder than it was when you first learned to lead? And every single person said, absolutely. One of them said 110%. I mean, they were ready to wave a flag. And I said, it's kind of interesting that we'd say that, because I agree, but it's interesting that we would say that because wouldn't you think it'd be harder when you were way younger and you didn't know as much about leadership? But everybody stuck to their guns. They said, nope, it's harder today. And then when I began to pick this apart, and by the way, this was pre-pandemic. This was like 2018, 2019. It was just a more complex time we found ourselves in. So I began to dig. In fact, that whole green room experience just made me start digging. What's going on in leadership? What's happening here? Why are we feeling this way? Why do so many of us want to throw in the towel? And that's exactly what was happening. In 2020, I don't know if you caught it, Fortune magazine ran a feature article called The Great CEO Exodus of 2020. In fact, watch this. Check out the screen. So it was a revolving door leaders. In the first quarter, January, February, March, before the pandemic, CEOs were stepping down. The CEO of Disney stepped down. The CEO of Hulu stepped down. The CEO of IBM, the CEO of LinkedIn, the CEO of Uber Eats, the CEO of MGM, the CEO of Lockheed Martin, the CEO of Nestle, the CEO of MasterCard, the CEO of Volkswagen, the CEO of T-Mobile, and the CEO of Harley Davidson. And that was just the beginning. So suddenly I realized I was onto something. This wasn't just a green room experience with 16 of us. It was something's in the water, something's in the air. And I'm not pushing this on you. You don't need to agree with me, but I just began to find so many leaders saying, it's just complex right now to be leading. And so in my digging, I began to discover some things that led me to the paradoxes. But the U.S. military, particularly the Army, came up with a term to describe leading in times of disruption. It's called VUCA. It's an acronym. You may want to jot it down. It's very apropos for where we are today. So VUCA stands for the times are volatile, realities are subject to change at any moment. The letter U reminds us the times are uncertain. Even effective leaders aren't sure what to do next. The times are complex. We not only face tough challenges, but they're evolving. And then finally, the letter A, the times we're living in are ambiguous. The answers are still fuzzy, even to great leaders. Wasn't it amazing during the COVID-19 quarantine, the first quarantine we went through, we were listening to leaders on television. I mean, Dr. Fauci and others, and you think these guys would know what's going on. And even they would say, but we're not sure. We're thinking in pencil right now. And I think there was a truckload of people, employees across the country that just said, I need better leadership than this. And we were thinking, I wish I could be better than this. In fact, I saw something really funny. It was a one-frame comic that said it all. A woman walks into a post office and has the clerk saying to her, sorry, we no longer have forever stamps. We now have just taking it day by day stamps. So isn't that how we feel? I don't even know what's forever. So here's my premise. Today's workplace requires leaders to practice some paradoxes, most of which require social-emotional skills. So my talk, as I wrap up the day, is not about a better business plan. It's not a better marketing strategy. You may need that. That's not me. I'll tell you what is me. Helping to build inside of you some social and emotional skills that just make you winsome. That enable you to read your people before you lead your people. And by the way, that is the need of the hour. We need to play chess, not checkers. When you play the game of checkers, all your pieces look alike, same color, same shot. When you play chess, you better know what each piece can do, right? That's good leadership. So social-emotional skills allow us to practice this effective leadership where in the moment we read exactly what that person needs, exactly what that department needs. That's what I think makes us effective. And I think it differentiates us from other leaders. So I'm using this word paradox. You might go, I haven't heard that word in a while. What's paradox? Well, let me define it for you. Quite simply, a paradox is a seemingly contradictory proposition that when investigated may prove to be well-founded and true. In other words, it's a statement you go, that couldn't be true. And then when you think about it, oh my gosh, it is true. Keep reading. Because two or more parts of the paradox seem incongruous, we often fail to see the truth in them. It only makes sense later. I'll give you a good quick picture of a paradox so you catch what I'm saying. I do live here in Atlanta, like many of you do. I remember hearing during the quarantine of 2020, we heard there was in fact, we knew there was far less traffic on the roads of Atlanta. Kind of made you want to get out, didn't it? Finally, there's no traffic on the road. But did you know that when all the traffic died down, accidents went up? There were more accidents with less traffic. That seems like a paradox, but you know what it was? Talk radio reported this. They said, we discovered that with fewer cars on the road, people tend to drive more carelessly and recklessly. Isn't that interesting? So that's a paradox. How could this be true and that be true? Both are true. Now is the time people are stepping away. I say it's time for leaders to step up, not step back. That revolving doors of leaders, we need to not join that revolving door of leaders. Yeah, absolutely. And I am thrilled to be connected to the Maxwell group. I'm thinking that's what we're about. Let's help you step up, not step back. Again, I'm just building the case. I'm stating facts. Now, having said that, I would like to kind of summarize where I'm going, and then I'm going to literally run through the 8 paradoxes. So at least you'll have a good overview of them. If you and I were to go to Starbucks and we had 5 minutes, you said, Tim, I got 5 minutes. Tell me what you think leaders and teams need. These 2 things I think are what we need to be embracing all the time. Number 1, timeless principles. If you're anything like the Maxwell group, you know we believe in timeless principles, okay? These guide our decisions each day. I would hope if you don't have these yet, you should build a set of core values. You probably all have core values, don't you? These are values we live and lead by. We walk by these. But I believe I have been a better leader. And by the way, this happened in the mid-'80s under John's tutelage, where I began to assemble some timeless principles today. I'm going to lead by those. That's going to be my compass, my true north, that when I look at that, I go, I know what to do here. I've never been in this situation, but this compass tells me true north. Everybody with me? So timeless principles. If you don't have them, you need to develop them. There are books out there that can help you. We need these. But that's not enough. In addition to timeless principles, I really, honest to Pete, believe that we need to bring with us timely paradoxes, which guide the interactions we have each day. So timeless principles guide the decisions. Timely paradoxes guide the interactions. That's where we're reading before we're leading. So having said that, I'd love for you to talk for just 60 seconds. I want you to turn to somebody close to you. If you don't know them, shake their hand. If you're not afraid of shaking their hand. And I'm sorry, I shouldn't make fun. It's real, I'm so sorry. But get to know them real quick. I want you to talk about this. Talk at least about the first question. Do you perceive a leader's job as tougher now than it was when you first entered your career? And have you done anything to rise to the challenge? 60 seconds, blitz it. I'll bring you back in 60. Go for it. Okay, I'm so sorry to interrupt, but I'm going to call you back. If you can finish that final sentence there and bring your attention back. All right, so I'm halfway done with my minutes. I'm going to turn you loose in just a second. But I want to now walk through with you as if we were just sitting down over a latte and share with you what these 8 paradoxes are, to the point you go, okay, I got that. I think I could do that, okay? So this is a you probably hear this all day long. This is a brand new book that's just come out, okay? I know, I'm so sorry, but it is. Let's walk through these paradoxes, okay? What I did, by the way, in each section of the book was I just defined what the paradox is and why it exists, but I give a case study for each one. So of the 8 paradoxes, there are 8 case studies, 8 stories of leaders that have done this. 4 males, 4 females, people all over history and people all over the globe. It was so fun to do this book. Let's jump in. The first paradox is, I think uncommon leaders balance confidence and humility. Confidence and humility. Now, isn't it true, very, very often you get one or the other. You either say, man, that guy's really confident, maybe overconfident there, I don't think he's that good, that sort of thing. Or you say, oh, what a humble leader. I love that humility. But isn't it true, if you only see humility, you go, I'm not sure if we're going to get to our goal, but we're nice, that sort of thing. I believe the greatest leaders, confidence, humility. In fact, I think Christ did this. Confidence and yet humble. He even said, I'm meek and humble of heart. So my case on this one is Bob Iger. You guys know that name, don't you? Bob Iger recently resigned as the CEO of the Walt Disney Enterprise, all right? When Bob Iger took the role in 2005, 2006, right about there, he replaced Michael Eisner. Now, Michael Eisner, at the time, extremely confident, very little humility. Can I say that out loud here? I'm just saying. In fact, his board voted him away. They said, you need to get out of here. You're not the kind of culture we want to build. He was off-putting, he was cocky. In fact, he was in dialogue with Steve Jobs to get Pixar. It was 2 egos just butting heads all the time. They just walked away from each other. Bob Iger comes in, he meets everybody, and then just humbly says, he basically said this, I don't know anything about leading this enterprise. I mean, he had been a part of the Disney family at ABC, but he'd never run an enterprise that sold plush toys, theme park tickets, animated movie. He's now selling, Disney sells everything, don't they? So he said, when I came in, I just had to realize I had to ask the people that I was leading what they thought was best. I began to inquire, and he said, I know I'm so he basically said, I had to not pretend that I knew everything that I was doing. But at the same time, it couldn't keep me from leading. I had to have the confidence. So he won them over with his humility, and then later saying, here's what we need to do. But it actually worked in his favor. In fact, by the way, back to Steve Jobs, Bob Iger ends up calling Steve Jobs. They'd never talked before. He said, hey, I'm the new CEO in town, He said, I know you had a difficult time talking to Michael, but I just can't help think, Steve, that we might be better if we were together. And Steve Jobs goes, that's not a crazy idea. They ended up meeting, and then get this, talk about confidence, humility. Bob Iger buys Pixar and then puts Pixar in charge of all the Disney animation. Is that not confidence and humility? I'm buying you, tell us what to do. I mean, that's kind of what, but I'm telling you, now, isn't that a rare leader? That's what the world's looking for. Confidence and humility, confidence and humility. I don't let my confidence keep them from seeing my humanity. In fact, here's what I would say to summarize this one. Your confidence makes your leadership believable, but your humility makes your confidence believable. They see that you're human and you're believable. Okay, you get the point. Let's keep going. If we have time, I may go back to that one a little bit at the end. All right, number 2, I love this one. I think these uncommon leaders balance both their vision and their blind spots. Now, you're probably thinking, how in the world do you do that? I'm about to tell you. So you all know this. Every leader needs vision, right? You have to have a vision. You have to have a target to hit, a goal to reach, some dream of what's going to happen that's a better tomorrow. But I believe the greatest leaders would say, and I also along the way noticed that I had blind spots. I not only didn't let it keep me from getting to where I needed to go, I leveraged them. My great example there, I believe, is Sarah Blakely. Do some of you, especially ladies in the room, recognize that name? So she's CEO of Spanx. She's the founder of Spanx. She created a new industry, basically, shapewear. So here's how it all started. 1993, she graduated from Florida State. She sold fax machines door to door. You all remember fax machines? So she's wearing pantyhose and high heel shoes and stilettos, and oh my gosh, she said it was not fun. I thought, I got to do something to these pantyhose. So she ends up, ladies, you get this, cutting them up and, so it was kind of like Spanx became this new product. She thought, I could sell this. So she goes up to North Carolina where pantyhose are made. Yeah, this is my field, isn't it? She gets up there, nobody wants to buy this new product because it's all run by men who've never worn a pair of pantyhose in their life. But one particular guy had 2 daughters, 2 young adult daughters. He took the Spanx back to them and they go, Dad, this is actually really good. You should do this one. And so he called her up and said, all right, I'm going to produce it. Well, now she's got the job of how do I find a distributor to get this product out? So here's what she did. She called up an executive, a female executive at Neiman Marcus. Just straight up called her, said, can I have 10 minutes of your time? Well, she got 10 minutes. So she flies out, goes up to this top level office, meets with this woman. She's only got 10 minutes. First 5 minutes, she's making her pitch and she's realizing my words are not getting anywhere. She's listening, but she's not getting it. And so Sarah stood up. She said, would you follow me? And the executive said, beg your pardon? She said, follow me into the restroom. I'm going to show you something. I'm not kidding. She walks into the restroom, tries on her Spanx in front of this executive. Sold. I mean, this is great, So Neiman Marcus puts it in about a dozen stores. Sarah calls up all of her friends that live in those cities and says, I'll send you money, buy out the product, buy out the product. They buy it out, pay to play, baby. And next thing you know, Bloomingdale's, other department store get it. Sarah is now a billionaire. But here's the part of the story I want you to catch. A year or 2 later, she's doing a Q&A on how she did it. And people are asking her, here's the question that kept coming up. I don't know how you did this. How did you get noticed by a department store like Neiman Marcus in a trade show with thousands and thousands and thousands of vendors and exhibits? And she said, trade show? What do you mean trade show? And they were explaining to her, this is how you do it. And she goes, oh no, I didn't do that at all. I just called, I got a meeting with an executive. It was the very blind spot that she didn't know that's what you're supposed to do in this gig that launched her to her goal. Haven't you had a few ventures you look back and go, if I'd known then what I know now, I would have never started it? Haven't you said that? That's the blind spot. You go, thank you, God, for that blind spot. And America's full of stories of blind spots. I mean, our country was an experiment that probably the early fathers said, thank God we didn't know how hard this would be. We would have never done it. But thank God they did it. So this is a key one for uncommon leaders. Okay, here's another paradox. I believe they embrace visibility and invisibility. So this is an oxymoron, is it not? My example here is Dr. King. So you all know Dr. Martin Luther King. He's one of my heroes. So by the late 50s, early 60s, he's the clear leader of the civil rights movement. He's got young guys like, Andrew Young and John Lewis and Jesse Jackson and Ralph Abernathy, but he's leading the deal. He knew at the beginning of this movement, I have to be extremely visible. And by that, he knew he had to lead the marches, lead the boycotts. He got himself thrown into prison. He was in prison 29 times, many a times on purpose, just to set an example. I'm willing to pay this price. Are you willing to pay this price? So you all know, right? Leaders have to model the way. They better set the example. Don't talk the talk if you're not walking the walk. So visibility is a must. But there comes a time in your journey where you realize, if I'm visible in that meeting, others won't speak up. They'll defer to me. There were times Dr. King stopped going to meetings after the I Have a Dream speech. He stopped going to some meetings, not because he was disinterested, but he thought, John Lewis will never speak up. He'll defer to me. Can you imagine? I mean, if Dr. King's in the room, don't you say, Dr. King, what do you think we should do? So he just stopped going, and John would call him. He said, John, you know what to do. You know what to do. John Lewis became a congressman, just passed away. I'm just telling you, there's a time when you're leading, you better show the way. Your training will be both your presence and your absence. Okay. Number 4, I believe that the best leaders are both stubborn and open-minded. Would you agree with that? I mean, even without knowing what I'm about to say, yes, sir, because haven't you had both moments in your life? Okay, my example here was none other than Truett Cathy. If you're an Atlanta person, you know Truett Cathy is the founder of Chick-fil-A. He passed away a number of years ago at 90-some years old. I was at his 90th birthday party. It was a big party, but it was so fun to see this guy. But let me tell you something. Here's what as I interviewed Chick-fil-A execs, the ones that knew him, including Dan Cathy, his son, they kept saying, Dan would say, my dad was so stubborn and he was so open-minded, so stubborn and so open-minded. I said, tell me about the difference. Truett Cathy was stubborn, strong-willed on the core that he believed, and on his people. So he had core beliefs like, okay, what's one thing you know about? Chick-fil-A is closed on, yeah, you all know that. That's one of his core. So Truett Cathy was known, that was so important that Sunday was not a day to work. It's a day to worship and be with your family, but you're not going to work for me. Truett Cathy, along his career, was known to find out that some of the Chick-fil-A operators were open on Sunday. This did happen. One up in Tennessee opened up on Sunday. Truett drove up and fired him on the spot. I'm not kidding. The guy's stubborn, but he knew this is our value. You're not supposed to, and you can't argue with success. So watch this. Stubborn there, but even into his 90s, so open-minded about trying new products. Chick-fil-A releases, they're all chicken related, but they're new products all the while. At 92, Truett Cathy opened up a brand new restaurant, Truett's Luau. Have anybody been to Truett's Luau? Amazing. It's not even a chicken place. He picked the colors, the menu at 92. I'd say that's pretty open. All I'm saying is this man models for us how to do both. Okay, my time's a ticking. 5. Oh, I love this one. 8. I think these uncommon leaders are deeply personal and inherently collective. Now, all of these are categories. This is the paradox of communication. When you communicate, the best leaders, when they communicate, are able to speak collectively. Like people can tell, you get the big picture. You certainly understand the big picture. But yet, everyone says, I feel like you're talking to me. You follow it? Haven't you ever listened to a great dynamic speaker? You go, oh my gosh, she gets it, but I felt like she was talking to me. That's exactly it. So Mother Teresa, for decades and decades and decades, worked in Calcutta, India, serving lepers and babies that were dying, that were malnourished and so forth and so on. Oh my gosh, she never left the work. She held babies daily. If she was in town, she was there wiping the lepers clean and holding babies. And her whole goal was, she said, I want no human being to die without feeling loved. So she might say, this one looks like it's about to go. Be sure and hold it until it dies. So crazy. So very, very, very personal. But she would say, if she were here today, she would say that helped her. It's because she stayed close to the work and very personal. She'd go and meet a businessman that was about to sell his property, his big building, and she'd say, there's some individuals in Calcutta that need your help. And she'd tell stories. She got a guy outside of Calcutta to donate the whole building and all the property to the Sisters of Charity, because it was the stories and the personalness. So I wish I had time to unpack this more, but you get the point. Very personal, very big picture. Very personal, very big picture. Great leaders do both. Don't just be that generic, well, I'll give you the data. Here are the statistics of the revenue. Not that. It's, yeah, you got that, but you're also saying, and I realize how this hurt you this year. I'm so sorry. Let me tell you what we're going to do. That sort of thing. It was Joel's story. Joel's undercover boss talking to these employees, giving them money. That was personal. Suddenly they got personal with the CEO. Okay, let's do 3 more. And I've got 20 seconds. You think I can do it? All right. Teacher and learner. I won't go heavily into this, but Angela Ahrendts, she's a model. Do you know she was the one that was asked in 2006 to take over Burberry coats in London, this high-end coat that was sold to basically to rich old ladies, basically. She came in. I'm sorry, that was true, and I can't mince words now. So she shows up, she meets her executives, but you know what she did? She went in there as the CEO, and CEOs by definition have to teach. Here's what we're going to do. But she sat there with her youngest employees and said, we're clearly not reaching your peers. What do we need to do? She was taking notes on what the interns were saying. And they said, we should try something like the art of the trench, meaning let's get our website to have a page that allows our consumers to post pictures of themselves in our coats. That's a great idea. Do we not enjoy posting pictures of ourselves these days? Company took off, but she was a teacher learner. In fact, she turned conventional wisdom on its ear. Most CEOs would go in, meet with their executive staff, come up with ideas and tell the young employees what to do. She met her staff, but she met with the young employees, got ideas, and then said, our executive staff has the budget and the network. We'll pull this off. Isn't that powerful? Teacher, learner, teacher, learner. Number 7, oh, this is powerful. They model high standards and gracious forgiveness. I was just with a group this morning talking about this in Alabama. I believe the best leaders, this one deserves an hour by itself, and I promise I won't take an hour, but I believe simultaneously you hold this high standard of excellence. You do not dilute it because it seems hard on Tuesday to your team members. This is our standard. We're going to be leaders in our industry, okay? But along the way, you offer gracious forgiveness when you see employees trying to meet it but missing it. If you only have high standards and no gracious forgiveness, nobody's going to take a risk because they'll go, good God, I'll get fired if I try to hit that. But if you only have gracious forgiveness and no high standards, people give you a mediocre effort. Yeah, you'll forgive me, so I'll do mediocre. But if you have both, I'm calling you up here, and yet I forgive you. Let's try again. Let's try again. Let's try again. Powerful. And again, I know many of you are business leaders. Some of you may not be faith-based. When I look at the life of Jesus, high standards, gracious forgiveness. Woman caught in adultery. What's he say to her? Where are your accusers? She said, they're gone. He said, neither do I condemn you. There's gracious forgiveness. Go and sin no more. There's high standards. Wouldn't you agree? He brilliantly lives these out. Okay. Yeah, I'm having a hard time with that last one. All right, the final one, number 8. The final one, number 8, is they are timely and timeless. Meaning, and by the way, my case study here is Walt Disney. I thought Walt Disney was perfect at this. If you've ever been to Disneyland, the whole theme park is timely and timeless. On to one side is Frontierland, Adventureland. It's looking back at the past, at timeless virtues we've had in America. Then you got Tomorrowland over here. It's all about the future. Nothing about the present exists. It's tomorrow and yesterday. But here's what Walt did. He called us back to the timeless values of America, basically. But he was always doing it with cutting edge technology. You want animatronics? Walt's got it. So in fact, this is a great way to close. I need to close. I challenge you. Be timely, cutting edge in what you're doing. Cutting edge in the technology you're using to deliver your product, if you can. But also do not leave behind those timeless values that you know are going to be good in any day. If you'll lead with these paradoxes, I believe your people will say, she understands me, he understands me, they get my life, I'm going to be fiercely loyal to them.
So welcome. We're so glad you are here. I'd like to take the next few minutes to give you a vision of our future, a vision of your future. See, this is a tribe. This is a community, a movement of people that just like you are designed for more so that we can impact the world together. I joined the company at 30 years of age as an entry-level telesales representative. I didn't want to lead. I had no desire to lead. I didn't want anything to do with the responsibility of a leader. I just wanted to come in. I wanted to join and be a part of an environment and just be a better person. But I was given more opportunity to influence and more opportunity to transform the world because of John's content and this environment, because the product works. It transformed my life. It changed the trajectory of my life. And over the last 10 years, it's allowed me to own businesses, start businesses, run in circles with people like John Maxwell, with presidents, prime ministers of other countries. You know why? Because the product works. This product began by giving me opportunities, and it has never ceased giving me more opportunity. See, this tribe is more than just about success. It's more than just about your success. And although we bring personal growth and personal success, it's still more about you and significance than that. It's more than just building a business. It's even, to be honest with you, it's more than just increasing your influence. Because we invite you today, we invite you as a part of this community into a journey of significance, a journey that will help you understand that all the success that you will get as a Maxwell Leadership team member is really meant to flow through you and become significance to others. Above all, there's one thing that we as Maxwell Leadership Certified team members share in common. It's our Maxwell Leadership Certified team culture. There's a reason that John Maxwell speaks about culture literally at every live international Maxwell certification event. The reason? Our culture is our DNA. It's who we are. See, culture is about family. And as a part of the Maxwell Leadership Certified Team family, you have the opportunity to both support and be supported by members of this community. Today, take this moment, embrace all that is available to you, and as a part of this team, and then challenge yourself to live, to lean into the values that John shares within his teaching. So it is with Maxwell Leadership Team every single week, every single call, and every single event. Every one of our members is going to open up a brand new you that's bigger on the inside than you are on the outside. That's the Maxwell Leadership way. John says you can't lead effectively if you're not bigger on the inside than you are on the outside. Today, you're starting a journey to a brand new you, a brand new future. It's bigger, it's brighter than you have even imagined. This is an opportunity to learn from people who have gone before you, who have been there before you and came back and said, I want to take somebody with me. I want to take you with me. That's the Maxwell Leadership way. We say it like this. We value people because we're people of value. And you are too. And the Maxwell Leadership Team is the way to become the best you. Here's my guarantee to you. We will add value to you along the way. We will increase your value each and every day. And whether you join because you want to grow yourself on the personal side or the leadership side, whether you join because you want to build an incredible entrepreneur-based business, or whether you joined us because you want to increase your influence, I can promise you this. When you take the time and take the journey and take the opportunity to better yourself, you will be a better leader. You will be a better you, and you will better the world around you. But let's not stop there. Let's grow together. Let's go together. Let's lead ourselves so that we can lead the world, because it's our time. See, we have a mission, a purpose, a calling to make the world better. And we've just been waiting on you.
I am so excited to get to talk to you. I just know our paths have crossed for a reason. I always believe that when I show up, even if it's just one thing I say that's for you. I truly believe there is a purpose for you being here and me specifically being here in this moment. Do y'all believe that too? Yeah. So I want to start out with a question for you, and it's a 4-word question. It's a simple question, but it's one that too often we don't ask ourselves. Something led you here. There was something that just caused you to say, yeah, I need to be there. And I don't know what it was, but there's something that you want. And so my question for you is, what do you want? I have found over my years coaching that so often we focus on what we don't want. In fact, our whole conversation can be around the things we don't want. You can be in a work environment talking about how tired you are of the work that you're doing, or the person that gets on your nerves in the office. I'm sure they're not sitting right next to you right now, but I'm just saying, sometimes we just get focused on talking about what we don't want. It might be a relationship that you're in right now, and all you think about is what the person does that you don't like. And so you begin focusing on the stuff you don't want and why it's a problem. You may be moving towards a goal and thinking about the obstacle to that goal, and that becomes the focus of just about every conversation. Why you can't have the thing that you want. And what I have found over the years is that just stopping yourself in the midst of thinking about what you don't want and complaining or discussing the excuses, even if in the moment you don't call them excuses, and just stopping yourself and saying, but what do you want? Changes the entire direction of what you're thinking. So sure, it might be the person next to you, not here, again, not here, at work that you're tired of being around, but the issue is much bigger than that. It's that you want to be in a place that reflects your values, doing things with people who share those values, people that you really enjoy. And so what you really want is a new place to be. Maybe what you really want is that business that you've been talking about launching for 5 or 10 years. And so the complaining is really a compass for you that can push you in the direction that you really want to go. And if you ask the right question. So when I ask, what do you want? I want you not only to be thinking of your vision, but why that vision matters to you. Because your vision and your values, the research shows us, when we ask questions around our vision and our values, we get inspired. We're pulled forward in a natural way. And sometimes you've got opportunities that come up that you weren't even expecting. About 4 years ago, that happened to my husband and I. We had a game plan. We were living in a town you probably don't know called Peachtree City, Georgia, which of course is in Georgia because we're all about peach trees everywhere. And in Peachtree City, you can drive a golf cart anywhere, 100 miles of golf cart paths. You drive the golf cart to Target, you drive it to school, you go to restaurants on your golf cart. I would only drive my car like once or twice a week. My office literally was a 2.5-minute golf cart ride. It was so nice. And my son's preschool was right next door. I just look out of my office over the playground. It was just perfect, or seemingly so. Until one day, I'm on my laptop. I don't even remember if it was Facebook. I don't know where it was. This ad popped up, and it was an ad for a home. It was a listing. Now, we weren't looking for a house, but the ad popped up. And the reason this ad was relevant was because before Jeff and I got married, he told me about a vision he had that I thought sounded a little ridiculous. He said, listen, I just want you to know before we get married that one day I want to have a house with an airstrip. And I said, I mean, I know you're a pilot, but a house with an airstrip sounds a little ridiculous. Who has a house with an airstrip? He goes, no. There are people who have houses with airstrips. In fact, they live in neighborhoods together. Sometimes they actually share the airstrip. And he drives me by this neighborhood with houses that have an airstrip, and an airplane was actually taking off. So it's a few years later, and I see this listing come up, and I thought, oh, how nice, how cute. Jeff's vision really exists. There's a house a few miles away with an airstrip. Now, be careful when someone's told you their vision and you see a glimpse of their vision. Be careful about sharing it with them. So I am going about my day, and I was like, oh, here's your vision. It's 3.5 miles from our house. It actually exists, a house with an airstrip. I thought nothing else of it. He was on a trip, and that night when he called, he goes, did you drive by the house? And I said, what house? I had already forgotten that I sent him the listing. And he goes, the house with the airstrip. I said, no, why would I drive by the house with the airstrip? We have a house. I like the house. We have a plan. That house isn't even in Peachtree City. It's 3 miles away in another county. What do you mean? And so he's like, yeah, whatever. I heard nothing else about it for about a week. Some more time went by. We're at a little get together with friends, and he starts talking to them about the house with the airstrip. Jeff, why are you talking about the house with the airstrip? We're not going there. We haven't even been there. A few more weeks pass. About 7 weeks pass, and I'm starting to feel sorry for my husband. So I said, babe, call your friend who's a realtor, and we can just go look at the house. That way you can see the house, and you can get this out of your system. We're not moving. But you understand, be careful sharing with people who have a vision, the opportunity for their vision. And so, sure enough, we go to the house with the airstrip, and you guys can probably figure out exactly what happened. In fact, we get to the house, and the realtor actually says to us, I'm not going to show you the house first. It does need some TLC. But let me walk you around the property. And we start walking around the property, and I literally walk past what was a prayer garden. And I remembered my own dream. I remembered 20 years ago when I was living in Dallas, that I would often think, I want to live in a house near a big city, but out in the country and have horses. Y'all, I didn't grow up with horses, but I had this vision. I would think of it all the time, and here I am. We start walking past the prayer garden, and sure enough, there's horses out in the pasture. And my husband sees the horses and he walks up and he starts hugging the horses. And he starts telling us what the horses are thinking by where their ears are positioned. And that's when I remember, oh no, Jeff had a horse when he was growing up. And his grandparents had a dairy farm and he used to work on it. We go in the stable and he's telling us all about the stable and the horses. And then we walk across a creek to where the airstrip is. And as soon as we walk across the creek, a plane lands on the airstrip, turns around, and then takes back off. And my husband says, oh, that's a Cessna 182. I think that's the first plane I ever trained on. I had not seen the house, but I realized in that moment that I was moving. And sure enough, we did. Now, why in the course of a week did we feel comfortable making a decision to make such a major move? And the reason is that we both had a vision of where we eventually wanted to be. It took me going to the vision to remember my own vision of how much I loved the outdoors, how I wanted to have horses, how I wanted to be out in the country but live near a big city. Sometimes there are those moments in life where unexpected opportunities show up. And if you understand your vision and your values, you'll know what to say yes to and what to say no to. This is critical. What are your values? When Jeff and I went on our honeymoon in 2013, we sat on the beach and wrote out our vision. And two of the values were this: we want to create an adventure and a unique experience for our family. And I got to tell you, living in a house on an airstrip with horses near the city, but out in the country has been a unique adventure for our family. What are your values that can guide you when those opportunities show up so that you know when to say yes and when to say no? When you ask yourself the right questions, you get the right answers. You literally coach yourself to the right answers. So I'm going to give y'all a few questions, and I want to just coach y'all today. Now, some of these you're going to know the answer to right away, and some of them you're going to need to think a bit about. But I promise you that if you pause and you're honest with yourself in your answers, you'll get the answers that will lead you forward and make you more resilient as you navigate the inevitable challenges that are going to come on your path. So here's the first question. It's just a vision question. What does success look like in this season of your life? Success looks different in different seasons. I went through what I felt at the time was just one of the worst things I could have ever gone through. It was the biggest fear I had in my life. My biggest fear after my parents divorced when I was in college was that I would end up divorced. And at 36, I found myself divorced. My vision was marriage and family, and there I was, divorced with no children. That was not the vision. But when all of it came together and God opened the door for me, and I walked into this season I had hoped for, I still had a definition of success for my career that was based on not having kids and even being single. So I had written, when I got married, that previous 5 years, I had written 6 books. I got married and I had another book due, and I found it really difficult to get the book written. Things had changed in my life. I got it written, but the next year my son came along and I had another book due. What was I thinking? And I was beating myself up for not continuing in the same path that I had been. And I had to step back and say, no. Success in this season looks different. Success in this season is more time. It's time for your family. It's time to be able to slow down. Yes, you're still making an impact, but you need to glean every lesson possible from this season of your life, because you're going to use everything that's going on now to continue inspiring. There are elements of you didn't have that you could share before that you're going to have, but you can't keep going at the rate you were going. Some of you are judging your success right now by an old standard. What does success look like in this season? With where you are in your relationships, in your finances, in your work, with what you are feeling led to do, how might you have a new bullet-pointed list of what success really looks like. Here's the next question. It's not just about what it looks like in this season, but this comes from some research from a woman named Dr. Laura King. And Dr. Laura King has done research on what happens when we write through our goals, even writing through life traumas. And here's the thing. When you write about life goals, it literally boosts your immune system. There is something that happens when we write that helps us process not only our goals, but the meaning and the value of those goals. It helps us think through things in a very intentional way. But you need to make sure that when you write about yourself, you're writing about your best possible future self in the present tense. So it's not, here's what I want to do. Next year I'm going to. It is, I am a happy wife who makes her husband happy. I am a parent who pours into my children because I want them to grow up to be good citizens. I am fulfilled financially. I ask for what I want and deserve. I am generous. It is an I am. It is an I have. This is what my life is. The power of writing your vision multiplies when you write it in the present tense. So I want you to take some time after Live to Lead to just get out some paper, maybe it's your laptop, and write in the present tense what your best possible future self looks like, even if right now it looks like a far off dream. When you start talking about it in the present, you begin believing that it is possible. So, how would you describe your best possible future self? But one of my favorite questions around vision takes you into the future so that you can look back at the present moment as though it was the past. And it's this: we're in the middle of so many changes in our culture, in our society. You're going through changes in your work right now. I want you to ask yourself this: looking back a few years from now, what will you wish you had done? 20 years ago this December, I was on the phone with my mother. We were just having an after work call. We would talk almost every day. And in the middle of our phone call, my mother said, "Oh, my head, something doesn't feel right." And you know when something doesn't feel right in your own body. She wanted to get off the phone, take some ibuprofen, lay down. She did that. I called her about 30 minutes later. She said, "I'm not getting any better." She started to feel nauseated, but she said, "I'm going to call the doctor." My mother, about 10 months earlier, had had something called a TIA. A TIA is a very, very, very mild stroke. You almost don't perceive that it has happened. But when she was feeling this way, she thought, "I wonder if I'm having a stroke." So she called the doctor. One of the doctors was kind of aggravated, like, "No, that doesn't sound like a stroke. Just take some ibuprofen, lay down." If she had done what he said and waited until the next morning to call him back, she wouldn't have made it through the night. A few hours later, my younger brother called. My mother waited about 20 years between children. So those of you who are wanting more children in your 40s, hey, there's hope. Some of you are in your 40s. You're like, "I don't want any more hope, Valerie, for more kids." But whatever the case, my mom waited 20 years between kids, and my brother Wade called. He was 8 at the time. And I could hear my mom violently ill in the background. And he said, "Mommy needs you to come down here and get her." We were 30 miles apart. I said, "Okay." And then she must have known in that moment that we didn't have that much time. She said, "Wade, tell your sister to come get you, and you hang up and call 911. And at 8, that's exactly what he did. So I head down to South Grand Prairie from North Dallas. I pick up my brother. The police are there with him because you can't take an 8-year-old in an ambulance. We get in the car. We head off to the emergency room. My mother had already slipped into a coma. The doctors were trying to figure out what was wrong. It didn't make a lot of sense. She was 49 years old. Low blood pressure, 120 pounds, not exactly a candidate for a stroke. They wheeled her away, and they came back and said, "We don't have time to explain what's wrong. You need to sign this paperwork." My mother was being wheeled into brain surgery. What had happened was that she had had a massive brain aneurysm while we were talking on the phone that night. A blood vessel had burst in her brain. My mother, at 49, lost her ability to see. She couldn't walk. She couldn't talk. Her bladder didn't function. They told me there was a 90% chance she would never swallow again. She couldn't even sit up on her own. But as I walked into that room after the surgery, and I'll never forget this, I'm talking to her. I actually brought her Bible in with me because I thought maybe I'll just read to her over and over again. Maybe she'll hear me. They told me it might be 72 hours before she says anything. And as I squeezed her hand and it felt really limp, I just kept saying, be still and know that I'm God. Maybe if I just keep saying her favorite scripture over and over, maybe she'll hear me. I kept thinking about my favorite soap when I was a kid. It was General Hospital. There was always somebody in a coma on General Hospital. And later on, somebody would say, they came out of the coma. They would say something like, I was laying there and I didn't see anything at all, but suddenly I heard you telling me you were sorry for all the stuff you did, and it just made me come out of that coma. And I thought to myself, maybe if I talk to my mother, maybe if I talk to her, maybe she'll hear me. And sure enough, about the 7th time I repeated that scripture, my mom opened her eyes. She just nodded. The nurses came running in. It was 6 hours after brain surgery. They said, this is highly unusual, but we think she's gonna make it. And when they finally took the breathing machine off of her, my mother said to me, it's almost the 15th of the month. I'm not sure if the mortgage has been paid. Please make sure the mortgage is paid. And the last time I was awake, it was Tuesday, and Wade has basketball on Wednesday. If you could please make sure he gets to basketball practice. That's when I knew she was going to be okay. But there are 2 powerful questions out of that experience. The first was this: looking back years from now, what will I wish I had done? And I did that. You may have plans for where you want to go, and life may knock you into a ditch with unexpected adversity. And you've got to be flexible enough to let go of your plans and take hold of the plans that are meant for you at this particular time. For me, that meant leaving my house, moving to my mother's house, helping her to be able to recover, helping my brother at 8 years old to be able to have some sense of normalcy, and a decision I have never regretted. Some of you have decisions you need to make right now that you will never regret, but if you want to be resilient, you've got to step into the shoes of your future self and look back and say, what will I wish I had done? Next question, very simply, who can you help and who can help you? Resilient people reach out. They don't go it alone. Don't allow your pride to keep you from asking others for help, for insight, people who've been there and done that. But just as importantly, I want you to make sure that you're saying, who can I help? In the midst of my biggest challenges, who can I help? Because what happens when we're dealing with difficulty is that we tend to focus entirely on ourselves, on our challenge and on our problem. But there is always someone around you who needs what you have to offer. So the question is, how are you going to add value to those people? Because that shifts your perspective. It takes the focus off of you into recognizing that even in the midst of my challenges, there is a way that I am meant to make an impact on others. It's not just about me. It's about the bigger picture of the impact I am meant to make.
In my early years, I had some good mentoring advice about problems, and basically I learned 2 things about problems that have stayed with me all of my life, and it becomes kind of the guideline for teaching this session here. The first one is, if you're a leader, there are seldom 2 good consecutive days in your life. Because you have problems. Is that not true? I mean, things come up, and if you're trying to lead people and get people to go from point A to point B, it's just so I love leaders who say, "Wow, I didn't think it'd be this difficult. And I said, well, it's very difficult. In fact, I ask people all the time, why do you want to be a leader? It's not any fun. You know what I'm saying? It's hard work. So I don't think there are usually two good consecutive days in a leader's life. And the second thing is that, think about it for a moment, problems should be solved at the lowest level possible. So the only problems you get as a leader are the ones that no one else wants, or no one else can solve. So you only get the toughest problems. You don't get the easy stuff. You get the tough stuff. And so when you think of your world and my world as a leader, constantly we have to deal with issues. And what I've learned about problems over the years is that problems introduce us to ourselves. Probably the best way for me to know me is to see how I handle problems in my life. And it's also, problems introduce me to others. The best way for me to know you is to watch how you deal with problems in your life. And then I think problems, thirdly, they introduce us to opportunities, which basically every great opportunity is surrounded by problem. And that's why a lot of people don't seize it, because they see the problem and they're not willing to work through the problem to get to where the opportunity is. So let's talk about those three thoughts. Problems introduce me to myself, they introduce me to you, and they introduce me, obviously, to opportunities. Okay, my first book I wrote in 1979, and it was called Think on These Things, okay? I only started writing books because I wanted to influence people beyond my own personal touch. So I never had a desire to be an author. A lot of people, they just want to be an author. I never had a desire to be an author, but my mentor said, I asked him one day, why do you write books? He said, I want to influence people beyond my personal reach and touch. The moment he said that, I looked at him at that moment and said, I'm going to become an author. And the reason was I wanted to expand my influence. And so my first book was a book called Think on These Things, still in print. You don't want to get it, okay? So when I said still in print, that doesn't mean you go buy this book, okay? Trust me, you don't want this book. 100 pages. Took me a year to write, so just do the math. One page every 3 days, 3.5 days. So, I mean, just figure it out. So I'm about good for a paragraph a day, okay? And 100 pages, and it had 33 chapters in it. Okay? Yeah, you heard right. I didn't say 3, I said 33 chapters. Every chapter was about 3 pages in length. In fact, I had a lady the other day bring it to me, wanted me to sign it. I said, that's my first book. She said, I know. She said, I love it. I said, you're kidding. She said, I love it. And I said, okay. I said, what do you like about it? She said, the short chapters. I love the short chapters, she said. And she said, tell me, how did you think about just doing short chapters? I love that idea. I said, lady, it was my first book. Some of those chapters are 2 pages too long. You've got to understand, I'd do 3 pages and I'd run out of gas. You know what I'm saying? I didn't have anything more to say about it. And so I said, but that's where. But in that. So what gets me to my first book is that I had a chapter called "What Is a Problem?" And what I do. So I went back to that book the other day when I was preparing this and revising, developing the leader within you. And when I saw this, I thought, okay, I had one good chapter out of 33. Okay, and in fact, when I finished writing that book, I said I'll never write another book because I'm not any good at it, and it takes me too long. And it's not really that good. Of course, what is it now? 80 books later, and I don't really think I got good until I think it was my 7th book where I figured out how to write. It took me 7 books, and so I tell people all the time, you're never good the first time, and you really aren't. And people take the first time way too serious. They take the first time way too serious, and they don't take every time serious enough. And consistency compounds. And But in my first book, I had a chapter called "What is a Problem," and I put in there. I did a little deal on the word problems, Problems, and I said, first of all, problems. The first thing is the letter P. Problems are predictors. Nothing predicts who you are more than a problem. It lets me read you and lets me see what kind of a person you are. More than anything else, they're predictors. The letter R is, for the fact, they're reminders. What they do is they remind you and me that life's not easy. It's not supposed to be easy. Wasn't designed to be easy. And so if I have these problems, I just say life's a little tough. The letter O is for the fact that all problems are opportunities. Because I know this for a fact. There has never been an opportunity given to you that wasn't surrounded by a problem in front of it. So they're opportunities. The letter B is the fact they're blessings. And what I mean by the fact they're blessings is they cause me to rely on other people to help me. They cause me to understand that I'm not big enough myself to do it. The letter L is the fact they're lessons. They have something to teach me. Every problem has a lesson within it. In fact, what I say is, you've never handled the problem correctly until you've learned the lesson that's within it. The letter E is for the fact that problems are everywhere. See, the tendency we have sometimes is we think that we have more problems than others. And my gosh, well, I've got a lot of problems. I wish I was where they are. They don't seem to have very many problems. They're everywhere. I got problems, you got problems. All God's children got problems, okay? They're everywhere. The letter M is their messages. They're just like the dashboard of our car when the red light comes on. They're sending us something that's saying, okay, you got to change something in your life. You got to fix it. And the letter S is the fact that they're solvable. That all problems are solvable. And I believe that. And that's why I do really good with problems. I do really good with problems because I never look at the problem as it's the end of it. This is a dead end. I just look at the problem and say, okay, it's going to lead me to somewhere that has some possibilities. And I brought with me my card because I love this. It's entitled "The Best Lessons." My best lessons were learned in bad times. And what I could tell you now is 10 to 1, I've learned a lot more in my failures and my problems than I have in my successes. I find in my successes I don't learn a lot. I just celebrate. But in my problems, I stop and call time out and say, okay, John, what's wrong here? So here's what I put in on my best lessons were learned in bad times. I learned people skills by dealing with difficult people. I learned to listen when a good friend told me that I didn't. I learned leadership when I realized others weren't following me. I learned about forgiveness when I needed someone to forgive me. I learned to ask questions when I ran out of answers. I learned not to take myself seriously when I understood that no one else did. I learned to take care of myself after my heart attack. Yet there are so many things I haven't learned: patience, humility, empathy, realism, submission, etc. And then I put at the end of this card, I need more tough times, but I really don't want them. Isn't that the truth? Huh? So we learn in our difficult problems, and I just say to you that I don't know anybody that likes them, but like what they bring to you, the possibility of beautiful change within your life. So I think problems introduce us to ourselves. I think that problems also introduce us, though, to others. I think we learn a lot about others by how they handle the difficulties and the problems in their life. I've often said that most people, they carry around with them 2 buckets. You know, if you've got team members, they got 2 buckets. In one bucket they have water, in the other bucket they have gasoline. So there's a problem that breaks out in your organization, a little fire, you know, and they're the first on the scene, and they got the 2 buckets. Get the picture down there. There's a little fire that started, and they either take the bucket of water and they throw it on the fire, and it's now, you know, a wisp of smoke and everything's fine, and you maybe didn't even know there was a problem. Or they take the bucket of gasoline, and when they get done, everybody knows there's a problem because they have the ability to take something small and make it a big problem. See, Problems just introduce us to other people. How you handle them tells me an awful lot about who you are. I was playing golf one day with Jimmy Blanchard, and I asked him about an acquaintance of ours. And I was asking him a little bit about him as a person. I didn't know him very well. And I'll never forget what Jimmy told me. He said, well, John, he said, I can't really answer that because I've never watched this person go through adversity. And then he said, you don't know a person until you've seen him go through adversity. And I thought how true that is. And isn't it also true that there are some people, they attract problems? Huh? They're problem attractors. Yeah, they're magnets. They're problem magnets. Absolutely. I can remember when I was pastor in San Diego, and I came to this church. I followed the founding pastor, and there was a group of people that just were kind of murmurers, criticizers. And I kept watching these groups, and after about a year, I figured out that there was one person that was in the middle of all of it. So I'll call her name Betty. That's not her name. So I brought Betty into the office, and I said, Betty, it seems to me that whenever there seems to be junk or garbage or problems, you're always in the middle of it. And I said, you need to help me out. I said, why is that? She said, we know what, Pastor, I don't know. It just seems like people with problems come to me. And I said, well, I agree with you. I said, but the good news is I know why they do this. Oh, she said, you do? Well, oh, she kind of got spiritual on me. Oh, this is wonderful. You and God can reveal this to me. I said, well, I don't need God to reveal this to you. I can do that myself. Betty, let me explain something to you. You're kind of like a garbage dump. She said, what do you mean? I said, you're like a garbage dump. When people have garbage, they think of you. And they put their garbage in their truck, and they go over to you. Betty, the garbage dump. And they back their truck up, and they dump their garbage with you. And I said, there's a reason for that. You like it and accept it. People don't take their garbage and go up to some manicurist's yard and back it up and drop garbage there. They know that somebody be coming out and hollering at them and suing them, and all kind of problems would occur. I said, you only take garbage where you know it's going to be accepted, appreciated, welcome. So I said, I just want you to understand, I know you, and you're a garbage dump. And the next time a problem occurs, I'll call you. Because I'll figure they brought it over to your place. She never forgot that teaching. Let me explain something to you. You could be a garbage dump. People like to bring their junk to you. Or you could say, you don't dump garbage here. See, they know who they can pass it on and give it to and who will accept it, and they know who can't. And so when it comes to problems and difficulties, I learn a lot about myself. But guess what? I'm going to learn a lot about you. And then problems, what I want to major on here, they introduce us to opportunities. Wow. You've got here, the question is that you and I have to look at, when we look at problems, we have to ask ourselves, am I going to be problem focused or am I going to be opportunity focused? Because they come together. They're always side by side. Opportunity and problems are always side by side. And so there's a problem process that I work through that will help you, I think, if you want to work through it. And that is, first of all, you have to embrace the problem. You just have to embrace it. You just have to understand this problem is good for you. So love on it a little bit. Hug it, okay? Embrace it. Out of that, secondly, you've got to search for the answer. Because there's always an answer. So when the problem comes to you, don't allow it to buffalo you. Don't allow it to get the psychological edge on you and say, oh my gosh, we've got a problem. What will we do? Oh, we have a problem. There's something we can do. And understand, there's always an answer. There's always an answer. And you say, John, I find that hard to believe. There's always an answer. Well, if you find it hard to believe there's always an answer, guess what? For you, there won't always be an answer. And that is your problem. Now, for me, there's always an answer. So I'll find it. But you see, if I don't believe it, I won't find it. So why do people give up on problems? Because they don't believe there's an answer. Why are there some people, they stay with it and get creative in it? It's because they believe there's always an answer. There's always an answer. There's always an answer. So when I see a problem, I don't look at it as a dead end or an end itself. I say, well, okay, there's something good in here, and I understand it. So you embrace the problem, you search for the answer, and then as you search for the answer, guess what? You find the opportunity. Searching for the answer is where you find the opportunity. The opportunity is always within the answer. So I could give you 100 illustrations of this. When I was pastoring and we started growing, if you start growing a congregation, what happens? You have to build buildings. You have to buy land. So guess what? I've got a problem. I don't have enough room. So what do I have to do? I've got to find the answer. What's the answer? Go get money. So I started off by getting loans, and then I started by selling bonds. And then one day a guy said, well, why don't you just raise the money within the congregation? And I said, wow, I never thought about that. And so the next time I raised money within the congregation, and I got good at it, and I did it again and again. In fact, I was in building programs. I pastored for 25 years. For 23 of those years, I was in building programs because I was always growing. If you're always growing, you always need more land, you always need more buildings. So my theme was forever we build. And not only did forever we build, guess what? Forever we needed money. So I learned how to raise money. And I got so good at it, I had a pastor from Phoenix, Arizona come over to San Diego, California and said, you know how to raise money, and I need to raise money. Would you raise money for us? And I said, sure. And I said, I'll come over for 2 or 3 times and I'll help you do it. And he said, how much will it cost me? I said, well, I don't know, $10,000. And we agreed. And that was the launch of my stewardship company that became the largest in America and that raised over $3 billion. All started with a problem. You see, I feel like President Kennedy, you know, they asked at one time how he became a war hero. He said it was very easy. He said, somebody sunk my boat. He said, as soon as my boat was sunk, he said, I became a war hero because I escaped. You know, I mean, if somebody wouldn't have shot my boat down, I would have never been a war hero. My speaking style. When I started speaking, I was too strong. And I just was very confident. And I didn't aim to, but I intimidated people. And I just killed them. They was just sitting there just begging for life and mercy. and so I thought, wow, you know, I've got to get better. Well, I was in a racquetball tournament and I pulled my back. And I was in bed for 3 days, and I had to go to Philadelphia for a conference, and I couldn't even hardly get up. And so I said, okay, I'll come, but my wife's going to have to come because she's got to dress me. I can't do anything. And I said, have a bar stool there. Just have a bar stool. I can sit down for 2 days while I teach, so I won't, I'll try to keep my back in decent shape. And so I went to, it was really Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. I went and did this conference. And after my second day, I'm going back to the airport. And I thought, man, I'm okay physically. I'm feeling better. What happened? Then I realized I sat all day for 2 days. And I taught while I was seated. And not only did I have a lot of more physical stamina that way, I found out that I became conversational. And now no longer were you an audience listening to a speaker. You were a friend sitting at the table with me, and we were having a conversation. And that's why I sit today. I sit today because I learned out of a back problem to sit, and I could connect and communicate better sitting than I could standing. Now all I'm saying, it's just very simple. All these are just problems that lead to opportunities. Now, Let me tell you one other quick thing about this before I get to the next section, because this is very important to me. In the beginning, I made a huge mistake. I tried to solve problems by myself. And so therefore, there would be a problem in my organization, and I'd pull away, and I'd work through it and try to deal with it and try to write out how I'm going to fix this issue. And then finally, I'd get an answer, hopefully, and I'd go out and I'd share with people, okay, here's the problem, here's the answer. And sometimes it looked good, and somebody said, oh my gosh, he's a smart guy, he solved our problem. But what I discovered was that I was making a huge mistake, and that was I was holding on to my problem too long by myself. And I wasn't sharing it with my key people. And what I've learned is that when I have a problem now, I can hardly wait to share it with my key people. Because here's what happens. I challenge you with this. You think on something for a long period of time, a week, a month, a year. Don't share it with anybody. You just do your best thinking and writing on that issue and just think, get really good. When you're done thinking and you're done getting your answer, I will promise you this. If you sat down with 5 people that loved you, knew your business, knew the context, okay, we're smart. You sit down with 5 people and share with them the problem or the challenge or the issue you've been thinking about, I will promise you 100% of the time in 1 hour, those 5 people will give you thoughts that you've never had in your life.
I'd like to take the next few minutes to give you a vision of our future, a vision of your future. See, this is a tribe. This is a community, a movement of people that just like you are designed for more so that we can impact the world together. I joined the company at 30 years of age as an entry-level telesales representative. I didn't want to lead. I had no desire to lead. I didn't want anything to do with the responsibility of a leader. I just wanted to come in. I wanted to join and be a part of an environment and just be a better person. But I was given more opportunity to influence and more opportunity to transform the world because of John's content and this environment, because the product works. It transformed my life. It changed the trajectory of my life. And over the last 10 years, it's allowed me to own businesses, start businesses, run in circles with people like John Maxwell, with presidents, prime ministers of other countries. You know why? Because the product works. This product began by giving me opportunities, and it has never ceased giving me more opportunity. See, this tribe is more than just about success. It's more than just about your success. And although we bring personal growth and personal success, it's still more about you and significance than that. It's more than just building a business. It's even, to be honest with you, it's more than just increasing your influence. Because we invite you today, we invite you as a part of this community into a journey of significance, a journey that will help you understand that all the success that you will get as a Maxwell Leadership team member is really meant to flow through you and become significance to others. Above all, there's one thing that we as Maxwell Leadership Certified team members share in common. It's our Maxwell Leadership Certified team culture. There's a reason that John Maxwell speaks about culture literally at every live international Maxwell certification event. The reason? Our culture is our DNA. It's who we are. See, culture is about family. And as a part of the Maxwell Leadership Certified team family, you have the opportunity to both support and be supported by members of this community. Today, take this moment, embrace all that is available to you. And as a part of this team, and then challenge yourself to live, to lean into the values that John shares within his teaching. So it is with Maxwell Leadership Team every single week, every single call, and every single event. Every one of our members is going to open up a brand new you that's bigger on the inside than you are on the outside. That's the Maxwell leadership way. John says you can't lead effectively if you're not bigger on the inside than you are on the outside. Today, you're starting a journey to a brand new you, a brand new future. It's bigger, it's brighter than you have even imagined. This is an opportunity to learn from people who have gone before you, who have been there before you and came back and said, I want to take somebody with me. I want to take you with me. That's the Maxwell leadership way. We say it like this. We value people because we're people of value, and you are too. And the Maxwell leadership team is the way to become the best you. Here's my guarantee to you. We will add value to you along the way. We will increase your value each and every day. And whether you join because you want to grow yourself on the personal side or the leadership side, whether you join because you want to build an incredible entrepreneur-based business, or whether you joined us because you want to increase your influence, I can promise you this. When you take the time and take the journey and take the opportunity to better yourself, you will be a better leader. You will be a better you, and you will better the world around you. But let's not stop there. Let's grow together. Let's go together. Let's lead ourselves so that we can lead the world, because it's our time. See, we have a mission, a purpose, a calling to make the world better. And we've just been waiting on you.